Hello everybody. So today we're going to be doing a nice little problem. Namely, we're supposed to determine the constants a, b, and c so that the equation f of x, which is equal to a plus b times cosine x plus c times sine x, fulfills the following conditions. Okay, just let me turn this off, please. Okay. So f of pi over 2 is equal to 0, f of pi is also equal to 0, and f of pi over 12 is equal to 1. So we know how to do this. So just instead of f of x, we're going to be putting the values of f, the values on the right hand side, and instead of x on the cosine and sine, we're going to be putting these values in the parentheses. Okay, so let's go ahead. So instead of f of x, let's just do this one first. So instead of f of x, we'll just write 0 is equal to a plus b times cosine of pi over 2 plus c times the sine of pi over 2. Let's just calculate this real quickly. The cosine of pi over 2 is equal to 0. The sine of pi over 2 is equal to 1. So that means that this whole equation just becomes 0 is equal to a plus c. And I'm just going to write that down. Okay, let's go ahead and do the second one. So again, instead of f of x, we'll be writing 0, so we're doing this one now. And 0 is equal to a plus b times cosine of pi, no need for brackets, plus c times sine of pi. And let's go ahead and calculate this one very quickly. The cosine of pi is equal to -1. The sine of pi is equal to 0. So that means that we can just write a minus here and erase all of this. Okay, so we've got our second equation. And now let's just go ahead and do the final one. So instead of f of x, this time we're going to be writing 1. So 1 is equal to a plus b times the cosine of pi over 12 plus c times the sine of pi over 12. Now, before we can write this in a slightly more manageable way, we first have to evaluate the value of cosine of pi over 12 and sine of pi over 12. It's known that cosine squared of x is equal to 1 plus cosine of 2x and everything over 2. And it's also known that sine squared of x is equal to 1 minus the cosine of 2x and everything over 2. Now let's just put in a substitution right here. Let's say that 2x is equal to some parameter t. So from here it follows that from here it must follow that x is equal to t over 2. So once we put that in to these equations, we get that cosine squared of t over 2 is equal to 1 plus cosine t over 2, and that sine squared of t over 2 is equal to 1 minus the cosine of t over 2. Okay, now that we've got that covered, why did I write this? Well, notice that pi over 12 can be rewritten as pi over 6 and everything over 2. By setting the t value to pi over 6, we get that the cosine squared of pi over 6 over 2, or the cosine squared of pi over 12, is equal to 1 plus cosine of pi over 6 and everything over 2, which is the same as 1 plus the square root of 3 over 2 and everything over 2. So this is equal to 2 plus the square root of 3 and everything over 4. Now when we take the square root of both sides, we'll get that cosine of pi over 12 is equal to the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 and everything over 2. So that's one of our accessory steps. And let's go ahead, and by using the same logic for the second formula, we'll get that sine of pi over 12 is equal to the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3 and everything over 2. Okay, now once we've evaluated this, let's just take these two values and put them into this equation right here. So what that will give us is that 1 is equal to a plus b times cosine of pi over 12, which is the same as the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3, everything over 2, plus c times the sine of pi over 12, which is just equal to the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3, everything over 2. Now, another thing that I want you to notice is from this here equation, we get that, okay, let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and subtract these two equations. So from here, we'll get that 0 is equal to a plus c minus a plus b. A and a cancel out. So from here, it follows that c is equal to negative b. And from the second equation, we also have that a is equal to b. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these in, these two into this equation right here. So we said that a is equal to b. Okay, so b plus b times 2 plus the square root of 3, b times square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 over 2. And remember that c is equal to negative b. So that's going to be minus b. That's going to be minus b times the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3 over 2. Now, I'm going to subtract b from both sides, and I'm also going to factor out b from these two. I'm actually going to factor out b over 2. Yeah. So that's going to be b over 2 times the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3 minus the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3. And by squaring both sides, I'm going to get that 1 minus b quantity squared is equal to b squared over 4. And I'm going to expand this part in the brackets right away. So that's the first term squared, so 2 plus the square root of 3 plus the second term squared, so that's going to be plus 2 minus the square root of 3, and finally minus 2 times the first term squared, and the first term times the second term, and that's going to be 4. So that's the difference of squares, and by using that formula, that's going to be 4 minus 3. And since this is 1, this entire quantity, I can just erase it. Okay, and the square roots cancel out very nicely. And here, we'll get 2 plus 2 is 4, minus 2 is just 2. And when that cancels out with this 4 right here, we'll get that 1 minus b squared is equal to b squared over 2. Now I can go ahead and take the square root of both sides, and that will give me that 1 minus b is equal to b times the square root of 2 over 2 once you rationalize it. And that will also give me that 1 is equal to b over the square root of 2 over 2 plus b, which is the same as b times square root of 2 over 2 plus 1, or that's also the same as b times the square root of 2 plus 2 over 2. And because all of this is equal to 1, from here it follows that b is equal to 2 over the square root of 2. Okay, I'll just change how I write it. So b must be equal to 2 over 2 plus the square root of 2. Of course, we want to rationalize it by doing this, so that's going to be 2 minus the square root of 2 over 2 minus the square root of 2. So b is equal to 2 times 2 minus the square root of 2, and in the bottom we still have the difference of 2 squares, so that's going to be 4 minus 2, which is 2, and these 2's cancel out. So from here it follows that b must be equal to 2 minus the square root of 2. Since a is equal to b, that must mean that a is also equal to 2 minus the square root of 2. And since c is equal to negative b, c is going to be equal to the square root of 2 minus 2. So that's, and so we've determined all of our coefficients, all of our parameters. And the last thing that we should do is write f of x with them. So f of x is equal to, instead of a, 2 minus the square root of 2 plus b, which is 2 minus the square root of 2 times cosine x, and plus the square root of 2 minus 2 times sine x. So this is our function. So all of this presents our final answer to the given problem. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, leave a thumbs up and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.